Bienvenidos a este segundo episodio de Atlassian On The Rocks. Hoy estamos en Barcelona, es el segundo día del Team 25 Europe. Ha sido ya 2 jornadas muy emocionantes y vamos a empezar a hablar con gente que ha vivido todo muy de cerca. Tenemos hoy a una de las expertas de la casa, María Ferreño de Sngular. ¿Cómo estás, María?
Muy bien, encantada.
Pues estamos en un club de pádel, ¿verdad? ¿Cuál es tu relación con el pádel? ¿Eres mirona, eres jugona o eres criticona o novata?
Puedo ser facilitadora, por no criticar. Realmente lo de jugar regular, nada de juegos con raquetas, que eso es peligroso. Pero lo de mirar, compartir y facilitar que la gente se lo pase bien, a tope con eso.
Genial. Es además facilitado que venga mucha gente de los Champions, ¿verdad? A que se pasen por aquí antes de la cena que tienen de la comunidad.
Al final, bueno, yo y otros compañeros del equipo participamos a este programa de Atlassian Champions y realmente digamos que la agenda estos días es bastante compleja, así que hicimos un huequito para hacer una sesión abierta solo para ellos, que creo que también va a estar guay porque están acostumbrados a otro tipo de eventos y difundir contenidos en un sitio como este es mucho más divertido.
Yo creo que sí, por eso estamos aquí. Y bueno, vamos a empezar a hablar de lo que hemos vivido. Siempre que hablamos de una conferencia de Atlassian, de un team, hay un montón de anuncios de novedades. Ya ha habido unos cuantos intensos. De todo lo que he escuchado hasta ahora, ¿qué es lo que más te ha llamado la atención? Tu anuncio favorito, por así decirlo.
Pues tengo que reconocer que venía con la expectativa un poco baja, porque normalmente los anuncios más grandes son en Anaheim, entonces aquí queda como los restos, pero estoy gratamente sorprendida porque hubo muchos anuncios en casi todas las aplicaciones, pero por quedarme solo con 2, porque el resto creo que hay que digerirlos todavía un poco más, hay una parte súper interesante que son estas nuevas units, que no sabemos exactamente todavía en qué va a quedar, pero al menos nos sirven para agrupar usuarios según seguramente pues las necesidades que tengan, ya sea por permisos, por el tipo de acceso que tengan a las instancias, por necesidades específicas, ¿no? Pues un tipo de agrupación diferente a la que tenemos por defecto solo en una instancia o solo en un producto. Creo que eso nos va a dar bastante juego el año que viene cuando salga. Y una parte que ya sabíamos que iba a venir, pero solo teníamos así alguna captura de pantalla, que es toda la parte de Atlassian Funds, para hacer la gestión económica dentro de Jira, que es algo que muchos de nuestros clientes demandan porque echan de menos pues un poco esa pata. Y creo, al menos por lo que hemos visto, que tiene muy buena pinta. Ahora hay que meterle mano y probarlo realmente, pero si tengo que elegir me quedo con esos 2.
Muy bien, lo de units es verdad, a mí me ha sorprendido. Me lo imagino como en instancias gigantescas, ¿no? Que puedes hacer la selección de qué apps para qué equipos y...
O le dejo estos agentes de robo a unos y estos a otros. Bueno, creo que puede facilitar un poco que cada uno acceda a lo que necesita, ¿no? Y no te encuentres en el universo de Atlassian Cloud, que ahora es, pues eso, un universo mucho más grande de lo que era hace años.
Exactamente. Se ha hablado también mucho de las colecciones que ya se habían anunciado, pero hemos entrado en más detalle y tienen muy buena pinta, ¿verdad? ¿Cuál es tu favorita? Yo creo que lo sé, pero bueno, cuéntamelo tú.
Tengo que decir que no tengo favorita todavía. A mí me gusta mucho este concepto de encontrar colecciones. Creo que es más fácil entender pues todo lo que te hace falta, ¿no? Al final tú compras el paquete y mejor que el paquete ya te venga con todo y listo. Entonces creo que esa parte está muy lograda. La más útil ahora mismo creo, la que es más tangible para todos es la Teamwork Collection, porque la tenemos muy en nuestro día a día, porque es algo que casi todos teníamos y es como... Ya tengo Jira, ya tengo Confluence, venga ya, usa Loom y lo tienes todo en el mismo paquete. Entonces, más que favorita ahora mismo es, pues eso, la más tangible, la que más utilizo en mi día a día. Para la strategy y la software creo que todavía hay que pulir alguna cosita y encontrar los casos de uso pues, en los que te compense más, básicamente.
Estupendo. Además de la jornada, digamos, de la agenda oficial, hemos estado hoy con clientes, ¿verdad? Y tú en concreto has estado hablando con muchos clientes que tienen migración de data center por delante y que ya por fin se van a poner con ella. Sin que nos desveles nada de qué habéis hablado, porque luego ahí cada uno tiene su cosa montada. ¿Qué recomendarías a alguien que tenga, a una empresa que tenga una migración de data center por delante y que todavía no se haya puesto a pensar exactamente cómo la va a cometer?
Pues mira, de entre éramos como 6-7 clientes más o menos diferentes, solo 2 habían ya migrado a cloud y el resto están en ese proceso. Y creo que lo que se compartió durante más veces es olvídate de que esto es una migración. Punto número 1, desátalo ya y hazla cuanto antes. O sea, deja de darle vueltas a esto porque no merece la pena. O sea, el proceso está, sabemos cómo hacerlo, llevamos años haciéndolo, cada vez cloud es más potente y puede resolver cualquier problema que te compro que hace 5 años echabas cosas en falta, no es el caso ahora mismo. Y un poco lo que más repetíamos es eso, de no tengas miedo, hazla ya. Cuanto antes lo hagas, mucho mejor y empieza a disfrutar de lo que tienes en cloud. Y sin desvelar así mucho, pero moló porque se generó una conversación muy chula de oye, que es que yo ya sufrí esto y mira, lo pasé de esta manera, o yo monté esto para mis usuarios, ¿por qué no lo haces así, no? Y entre ellos pues se entendieron y se encontraron un poco en la misma situación, que al final pues es lo que hacemos nosotros con otros partners también, ¿no? Pues ir un poco ahí a igual, ay Dios mío, esto me lo cambiaron y ahora no sé cómo es. Así que sí, yo recomendaría eso, hazlo cuanto antes, hazlo sin miedo y empieza a disfrutar de lo que te espera.
Y yo creo que como van a ser nuevos en cloud, la gente que está mirando desde Data Center tiene esa digamos, ventaja del que llega tarde, ¿no? Que ya puedes coger con bastante presupuesto, porque son empresas grandes, exactamente cómo se lo quiere montar, con todas las novedades, en pensar bien desde cero. Eso es muy, muy interesante y muy atractivo.
Es muy guay también que algunos de los que ya migraron, supongo que esto es como todo, ¿no? Algo traumático hubo durante el proceso, pero luego se te olvida cuando ya estás en la etapa de disfrutar. Exacto. Entonces, estaba muy guay que algunos de ellos ya les decían, jova, pero es que ahora que estoy creando agentes de robo, ahora que a mis usuarios les he puesto esto que antes no tenían, los tengo más contentos, ya se olvidaron de que esa aplicación ya no existe en cloud y que ahora no la pueden usar. ¿Dónde va? Al final, al cabo de un par de meses, te acostumbras a lo que hay y disfrutas o abrazas lo nuevo.
Muy bien, y para todos aquellos que estén ahí a punto de dar ese paso y a punto de elegir un partner, ¿qué le dirías, qué es lo que hace diferente a Sngular y por qué pues, está muy bien trabajar con este equipo?
Realmente les diría que no se dejen convencer por nadie, o sea, que lo prueben, las cosas como son, porque al final creo que las cosas las descubres o te convences de ellas cuando trabajas con la gente. Y creo que nosotros somos un equipo muy expeditivo, para bien y para mal, nos gusta el riesgo y estamos como, bueno, cualquier novedad de Atlassian que hay, estamos siempre al tanto, porque por suerte somos muchos, nos entendemos muy bien y eso está genial porque actualizamos nuestros procesos continuamente, ¿no? Entonces, al final está genial seguir un guión, pero si estás en el ecosistema de Atlassian, tienes que saber que ese guión es editable todos los meses. Entonces, tienes que adaptarte muy rápido, ¿no? Creo que para eso, pues eso, tienes que ser aventurero, tienes que no tener miedo y creo que eso los clientes lo notan. Entonces, si realmente también les interesa la aventura, que entiendo que sí, porque por eso tienen un Jira de 15.000 usuarios, ¿no? Así que algo expeditivos también tienen que ser. Creo que somos ese equipo, no nos vamos a quedar parados, siempre vamos a estar pues, con las novedades que haya y buscando siempre la mejor forma de, en el momento en el que estemos, de echar una mano y de mejorar lo que sea que sea.
Sí, cada vez más Atlassian yo lo veo como una plataforma de innovación interna, porque te está forzando a repensar constantemente cómo tienes que abordar tus procesos y tus flujos de colaboración. Muy bien, pues muchas gracias, María.
Gracias a ti.
Hi Dan, thank you for joining us in this. This is actually the second episode of the podcast that we're doing called Atlassian On The Rocks, and we are delighted to have you on the show here in sunny Barcelona.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. So on Sunday, you organized a partner conference. It was a great event, great atmosphere. Why did you think that it was something that you wanted to do and that you felt it was the right moment to do it for partners?
So I left the Atlassian system around about 5-6 years ago when I exited Adaptivist and had happily gone off into the distance, and since then there'd been a lot of consolidation, a lot of movement in the marketplace, and Atlassian partners weren't working together like they used to. They weren't sitting and chatting and hanging around, and they saw each other primarily as competitors rather than people who were here to all work together for the greater Atlassian ecosystem. And that was a shame, because I saw the value of what it took to build and start that mountain climbing activity of go off and unleash the potential in every team, which we did really, really well for DevOps teams. We did really well for ITSM teams, and given Jira Core at the time and other initiatives to bring in business users, it never really unleashed the potential in other teams. And we had Atlassian get to about 1,000 in size, then grow to 4,000 and 5,000. And we went through the period of 2016 of a lot of consolidation, so all the way up to about now, where partners were really focused on the marketplace. And you see a lot of similarities between the way in which apps are priced or licensed. There was a lot of variation back in the old days. And we're now entering that same period of unlocking potential by uncoupling licenses so that you can get per user pricing. And even you're seeing partners being pushed to new versions of APIs so that Atlassian can do data security and do data residency and can own the data security platform to make it far more appealing to enterprises. This gives the possibility of unlocking and unleashing the potential in every team, and we're back to growing the pie. So I think in order to do that, we have to start working together again. That doesn't mean that partners can't and shouldn't compete, but there are really areas where we don't need to, where we can work together on our RevOps platforms as to taking transactions and working out our back office functionality to work out what our ARR and MRRs are, or working out what our marketing plans exist and how a business should function. Those are our competitive edges. What is our competitive edge is the value we give to customers, and so many of the partners that exist today haven't woken up to the fact that you have to move from function and feature to value and problem. And waking companies up so that they can start talking about how they went on that journey. How do they find out what customers are doing? How do they work with solution partners in order to better understand the value that these platforms provide? I think that's the thing that we can share. And bringing an unconference together felt like stepping 10 years back in time. We went back to the old days of Atlas Camp in Half Moon Bay, for some of us that remember, sitting in a pub afterwards with fierce competitors sat next to each other, sharing a pint. And frankly, we see each other on the battlefield and we play against the fair rules. But we can all still step back from that and realize we're all in this community together in order to grow the community and for it all to succeed. And each of us want to win in our own right.
So you've seen a lot of changes and transformation of the ecosystem from when it was in the very early days, from when you exited Adaptavis that you were mentioning, and how it looks now. What do you think that a successful partner operation would look like in 2030, when there's no more data center, there's no more data center migrations, and it's all about the cloud platform?
So it depends on which way you look at the partner ecosystem, because at the moment there's two sides, right? There's the solution partners. And the solution partners have spent a lot of time implementing. They've been solving performance problems. They've been helping customers integrate with backup solutions. A lot of that operational concern has gone. And if you look at partners that have done a lot to deliver Atlassian administration, and so outsourcing that skill to the individuals, that instead of having your own internal admins, you pull in a solution partner who can do that as a specialist, deliver configurations, and a lot of that is starting to go. Atlassian is taking over that with Rovo. That means that Rovo will set up your project for you. And the same for your permission scheme, and it will help optimize the ways in which you're working, looking at the stuff that's in the teamwork graph. And with all of that, you have to then imagine what a consultant does help people with. And it's probably helping the organization understand what their work is. Up until now, I'd say a Jira administrator has looked a lot like an IT support engineer. Someone who would log in and change the configuration to meet what was technically required. And in the world of DevOps and ITSM, that engineer probably understands natively what that work looks like. I think, roll forward 5 years, I think the administrators and the work being done is going to look a lot more like HR. HR understand how work gets done in your organization. They don't necessarily understand how to be a lawyer, but they know what their lawyers do. They don't know how to be a marketeer, but they know what their marketeers do. They understand how the teams are structured, and they understand how the teams are communicated. They build learning and development plans, and they work with other parts of the organization in order to build systems of of their literal system of work. I think that the opportunity for solution partners is to go in and help codify that inside of the Atlassian systems and help reflect how the whole organization works. If you look at, say, a Cisco in the enterprise, in cloud, as we see on as Atlassian's case studies, around about 60% of Cisco are using Jira. If you look at a Walmart, it's closer to about 3. This really is unleashing the potential of every team, and there's an opportunity for partners to really step up and understand the work that is in Walmart that could be captured. I mean, you walk down the street and you see a light bulb that's broken. That should be in the teamwork graph. I mean, this is a long way off, right? But that is work. That is work for someone. A bin that's overflowing, all the way down to everything that you see everywhere that is seen. And solution partners really are going to have to gain that empathy and that experience to understand how work gets done. And I think we're going to see less technical consultants and paralegals, or maybe educators, or hospital administrators, and that experience starting coming into the partners so that they can start specializing in verticals so they can help those organizations not just understand how they work, but empathize with how they could work better. Frankly, I don't think anyone hates Jira. I think people hate how Jira is configured, but they know that. So why don't they configure it to work how they, well, it turns out they don't know how they work. And I think there's a great opportunity for us to help people first off say, how do I work? And then why do I work like that? We can work however we want. We're knowledge workers, and we should be using our knowledge to figure out how we can work better. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for solution partners to do that. Now, marketplace partners, on the other hand, we've got a large toolkit of checklists, or we've got graphing tools, or we've got report writers, or we've got a million, not quite, about 6,000 different apps out there that are very functional. If I need to build a chart or write a script, that's how I find it in the marketplace API. But I don't know what I do if I've got a problem. I want to communicate, or I want to structure my project in a better way. Here's a great example. Saw in the keynote that an example of Rovo being asked to create an onboarding checklist. Of course, that's great. Off it ran and built me 5, 6, 7 items. That's great. Where did it get those from? Well, we didn't see what it would have needed to have. Mike last year said, with great data comes great AI. The converse is true. What if I didn't have my HR manual in Confluence? Do you think that Rovo would have said, no, I can't do that? Or more likely, I think it would have just made it up. And this is where I think apps are going to step in, that we're going to have apps able to help you build better products, understand where your data could be made better, building AI agents that make sense, putting validation into these AI agents and helping understand how to do that. But I think there's a world of the future that looks like the new generation of marketplace vendors that has nothing to do with the marketplace. It has everything to do with apps built on a platform. An example I keep using is, let's say I say something wrong and you think I've slandered you and you decide to sue me. You're a lawyer. Well, talk to me and I'll get a lawyer. And something called discovery takes place. Now, in the legal term, in the legal space, they call this the white room or the clean room. I put all of my data in here. You don't get to see it, your lawyer does. They pour through it in the process of discovery. That's all audited, logged, tracked, and then you get a report out at the end. You might have said, I've stolen your app. I put my source code in there. Your source code goes in too. We check it, look it. I don't see yours, you don't see mine. And the whole legal process is tightly controlled, overseen, and at the end of it, it gets sealed. That sounds a lot like some documents that could be stored in Confluence or in an asset, and probably tracked inside of Jira. You could trace it all inside of the system of work in the teamwork graph, and then maybe a platform app, which would have a dashboard and show you the results of all of this. You can then archive that up and have a set of spaces and across both Jira and Confluence that are ephemeral, just for this project, archived away until they're needed, and you can put permission controls to make sure that it can only be unlocked when the proper authorization is given. At none of this point did we actually talk about Jira or Confluence when we were talking about the problem. No one's looking for Jira to go off and hold my data or for Confluence to go and hold my assets. What they are looking for is something to do a clean room or a white room, and I think that's what we start selling. Mm-hmm. And I don't take a booth here at Team. I go to a law conference and I take a booth there and I talk to them about their problem. And at this point, we've pulled in Jira and Confluence as a side effect of us, because it wasn't Jira they were buying plus our app. It was our solution that included Jira and Confluence. And on top of that, we can now say, hey, you can now run your HR system on this. You already have Jira and Confluence, and we can grow.
Let me catch you there to make a follow-up question. Do you think that new customers to the Atlassian platform, or even DC customers that still have to do the migration ahead and they have to drop a lot of stuff and rethink everything, have an advantage to embrace all these possibilities over those who are already entrenched in Jira is for IT, and Jira is for for developers, and it's not for anybody else?
If all you're doing is taking what you were doing and migrating it up into the cloud to where you were, new cloud, DC to cloud, you've lost an opportunity. And as has happened multiple times in my previous life, I've had people ask me to shift workloads off, say, Remedy and into Jira. And they paid me $500,000 to help them hate Jira, because the problem wasn't Remedy. The problem was they had 300 fields. And the spec was, take what we're doing over there, and people didn't care that it was a desktop app. People didn't care that they had to scroll down the page. People cared that they didn't know how to fill half the required fields in, and that it was in the way of them moving forward. And so reevaluating of the value that you're getting from the platform is as important as the features and the functions it provides, because what you do is as important as how you do it.
What do you think about Forge? You're a developer yourself also, or you're very technically minded. You've been doing the Forge quest, right? What was your experience with that quest? What do you think of the platform so far?
I think everyone should do Forge Quest. Everyone. It's built to be accessible. You don't need to be a developer. There is technical terminology and you can cut and paste most of it. What it gives you is the experience of what it means to build an app in the modern Atlassian world in the cloud. And if we take Connect, you had to run your own cloud. It was API driven, and so you already need to know how to run a SaaS platform, probably have an AWS account or a GCP account, know how to run serverless or have containers, and there's a whole ton of stuff that you had to deal with. This was very much like plugins v1, way back, about 20 years ago. And that had very limited uptake because it had lots of sharp edges and requires a high amount of understanding and knowledge. Now, what we did with plugins v2 was codified and simplified how plugins work with each other, put safeguards in place, and did some memory model protections. It's very similar to what's happened with Forge is with Connect. They were learning how to do plugins in the cloud, and they fixed a lot of runtime issues. With Forge, they've learned all those lessons and know what it means to be in the cloud. They also understand what it means to be able to deliver a secure and a safe and an audited network. Everything that you write that runs on Atlassian is already there on their side, SOC 2 ready, and is ISO compliant, 2001. Following those data security best practices means that you don't need to worry about is it encrypted at rest, is it encrypted in transit. You don't need to worry about what the runtime model is and how to wrap your lambdas in an appropriate way. What you really do is bring your business logic. You tell it what to do. And you want it to show the time of day, then that's the line of code that you're writing. And with the recent addition of Rovo Dev and of being able to use Rovo to build Forge apps inside of Studio, I think it's going to be really interesting watching the vibe coding, for better or worse, of apps. And from the unconference, everyone I spoke to instantly went home that evening and was trying to vibe code their own apps. How hard is it for someone to replicate my app? And this democratization, this citizen developer, as sometimes it gets called, I think as many people as possible should give it a try, because it's all too easy to think that, no, that's hard, it's complicated, it's technical, and yet whenever I hear a CEO tell me that, it's like, have you tried? And the answer usually is no. And so with the move to Forge and the pressure that comes with it, I think there is a much better platform upon which we can have more apps, more solutions solved, and I think we're going to see a lot of more interesting problems come to the fore.
Do you think then that there's a line of business for partners to be actually helping customers to build their own apps and take those apps to production and be ready and be, let's see, stable and useful, rather than just pushing product to the marketplace?
I see app vendors and solution partners both very successfully running Forge workshops in customers. They're going out and saying, hey, here we can go off and build your integration to your HR system, or we can go off and build some automations and build them natively inside of Forge, or we can plug these into your REST APIs, and working with tech teams. But not just that, going into the HR teams and getting them to build the automations for onboarding, or going into legal and having them build some oversight agents for expense tracking. And then you have the all sorts of different business cases start coming up, and they start working out where is it easy for them to do, and it drives demand to go back to the marketplace partners and the solution partners to ask for help for the more complicated cases.
A last word about Connect. You said a little bit about Connect being an intermediate version to get to Forge, to knowing how to really do this modular SaaS building. Do you think that there is still a future there for Connect, that some developers will decide to not port it because of Forge limitations, to stay in Connect, or stay partially on the framework, or is it the end?
Connect is a legacy platform. It is going to fall away, and I don't think there's going to be very many Connect modules left in 2 years' time. I would rapidly expect Connect on Forge within the next 6 months to take place, and Connect as a way of interfacing with the platform is dead, it's gone. Anyone who needs Connect in order to achieve a use case, there's a large number of Atlassians who are searching for those cases so that they're aware of them, so if they're not on the roadmap, or if the way in which they've been implemented in Forge isn't sufficient to achieve what you're trying to do, because Atlassian has to interpret how their APIs are being used, and they don't always get it spot on because they don't see your side of the app. But I think within 2 years, we'll see most of that change. And the thing that makes me optimistic is, if I look back 6 months and see where Forge was then, and I look forward 6 months, it keeps me optimistic.
That's great news. Well, thank you, Dan, for your time. We'll keep talking at the round table with the other guests. Thank you a lot for this time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, Margo, thank you so much for accepting to be part of this episode of Atlassian On The Rocks. Remind us how you met the Sngular team. It was not too long ago, right?
Yeah, it's actually quite a funny story. It was my first Atlassian team conference in Las Vegas, and I did not know anyone there. And I really wanted to go to the Grand Canyon there, and I was scared to go alone. And one of the, conversation across the expo floor was like, hey, is anyone going? And the team was actually so welcoming. They were going on the Grand Canyon tour. And they invited me to join, and they were saying like, the tour would be in Spanish. You should, are you okay with this? I was like, well, I think I would be okay in this, and they were very kind. They were translating some of the jokes for me. We were sightseeing, enjoying this fantastic views together. And now, I'm so happy to be here on your event, from that journey to now, to work together, to collaborate. And I really, really love your team.
Thank you. It's the great thing about this ecosystem is you keep encountering people that you've met from other events and so on. And you always find new aspects about them, new ways of collaborating, new discussions. So it's great to have you. You are an expert in OKRs, right? What would you say to a tech team that isn't still using them?
I would say that do not look at it as a threat or as some extra work that you would need to do. So what I often tell to engineering, to product teams, that OKRs often give you the why behind. So you can have an excellent roadmap, you can have your planning in place, you can be doing really good, but sometimes you are missing some strategic points, you are forgetting about why you are doing what you are doing, and connecting, this whole pyramid from company vision, mission to the objectives and key results, making it actionable, connecting it to the work the team do. This is just making such a great impact. And maybe it won't be look perfect. Like for engineering teams, sometimes OKRs are a little bit more output based, but this is fine. There are team specifics here. What is important is the connection between, between what matters most. That is very important, and I would highly recommend getting there. And I think this is something which helps to prevent successful and talented engineering teams turning into feature factories with some management coming and saying hey, you need to do this thing. Our customer asked about this thing. But when you have OKRs, it's kind of a different kind of conversation,
Absolutely.
So what do you think is the biggest benefit of using objectives and key results framework?
Well, as it often happens when you work in a complex organization, what I found is that it's very, very common to lose sight of why you are doing things, right?
Of course.
And I think OKRs, the structure of having objectives at the top and then key results at the bottom. The objectives are why you are working and where do you want to make an impact. And the key results are how you're going to measure that. And there has to be a very good thought process into capturing specific metrics that you can actually move the needle. I think it's a difficult exercise to maintain regularly that kind of structure. But when you really go into that habit, it completely makes sense because it helps you work on the important stuff, right?
Yeah, and it's a journey, you don't need to make it perfect, maybe something you draft, it's not like what is written in a general book. Maybe it's different, maybe it's a little bit wrong. So for example, I had a customer of ours, I was onboarding, and he was pretty happy with everything, and then he showed me his OKRs, and there were objective and then a list of initiatives underneath, and I was saying, Diego, maybe we can think about some measurable components to these objectives to make it more more measurable, to understand if we're reaching objective. And he was no, it's not right now. So I know OKRs, I've implemented it at my previous job, but here we have a very traditional business, very conservative company. People are not used to measuring impact. We can just scare them off. So this is a huge step forward to measure their initiatives, to link them to their objectives. So right now we are saying to them that please, before going all in into some strategic initiative, see how it contributes to the objective. And then we can gradually introduce key results. I was thinking okay, it's not what they are supposed to do, but let's see what's happening. And actually in 1 year, they were outlining the key results, the first measurable outcomes for their company. So they're slowly getting there. And if you ask an OKR coach, about doing this, he would say no, this is wrong. They should talk about measurable outcomes at the very beginning. But what can happen, people are different, companies are different. You can have huge pushover. If you don't get this internal buy-in, it doesn't matter. You can craft this perfect objectives and key results, and no one would care. No one would do this. People would sabotage this. So sometimes you need to be that extreme, and I think this is acceptable if it's driving the company forward. Yeah. You may not call it OKRs, you can call it a different way, but if it's moving the company forward, then this is the way to go.
You have to learn to walk before you can start running, right? So
I love this phrase.
I think that it's important to go little by little in these situations. It's a muscle, but you first need to know what the movement is, and then you can pull weights. Yeah. What are the most common mistakes that you see with OKRs?
Okay, there are quite a few actually. I would name some. So first, I would say put in too many of them and put in everything in it. So there would be some departments that might not be working at OKRs at all. There might be departments who will have more of the operational work. There might be cases that when you don't, need to put everything into objective and key result, because what is happening, like when people implement OKRs, they sometimes think like, okay, now we need to tie all our work to OKRs. And then things happen because there is some operational stuff to do as well. And you need to maintain a healthy balance here. You need to understand that, okay, I have operational work to do, and this is my resource that I can, I can devote to OKRs. I need to evaluate this carefully, otherwise it won't work. So this is one mistake. It's very common. Another one is not the mistake, but the internal push always just a challenge. It's happening with all the new things. But the mistake people are doing often is they are pushing too hard or they're not explaining enough. I have another story of mine. When I was first introduced to the OKRs, I was sitting at the company meeting. I was working at a pretty big company right now, and there was a CEO presenting the company strategy for the next year. And he was also saying, guys, we're implementing OKRs. These are objectives and key results. These were used by Google. It helped Google be so successful, so we use it as well. So now what changes? All our goals, they need to be super bold, super ambitious. So I'm working in marketing. He was like, so marketing sales for the next year, your OKR is to double our revenue. And I remember that no one asked a question that meaning. But I was so frightened. I was like, okay, I'm getting fired. no way we can do it. And nothing was said, nothing was explained. So we do not tie OKRs to performance reviews. We do not fire people if they're not reaching 100%. But that wasn't explained. That was like, hey, you need to do this. And we were not talking about resources. We were not having this conversation, not having conversations about trainings. And I was so scared. And my teammates were like, and no one talked, no one said anything. We were just like, oh my gosh, we will be fired. We are all gone. So do not do this. If you want to help your team succeed, support them, do the training. So what some of the companies also do, they create OKRs for the pilot team. So they don't do this for the whole company. So one way is for the whole company, another way is for a team. And you can start for the team. You can see how it works within your organization. You can play around, and then you can gradually scale to other teams. So just do not push too hard, or otherwise, people would be very much scared and not getting there. There are quite a few, but we can.
Yeah, those two, I think, are very, very significant. You don't want to scare people off, or they will have the process instead of leaning on it, right? I guess to be more productive.
You can ask some things about goals. Right now, it works pretty well within Confluence. So if you have your mission, your vision, your goals outlined within Confluence page, Rover can consume it. It can get pretty good feedback. And if you put it in chat, pretty good feedback. With goals, I'm having a little bit of mixed experience. I was actually recently running a workshop of how to use Rover OKR generator. And so, for example, I was trying to find this. I was asking questions about goals, like, hey, what are my goals? And at first, it didn't define, didn't find these goals at all. And then I said, can you look into Atlassian goals? And when I said Atlassian goals, it found the goals, but it got me 2 out of 5 goals. So sometimes you are getting the output, sometimes not. So I guess with Team Graph evolving,
Teamwork Graph, and I think also the actions are going to be very interesting. The skills, because I think the skills are capturing precise actions and instructing Robo where to look for in the Teamwork Graph and what to do with like check a goal or update a goal, something.
Yeah, I'm also very excited about scenarios. So so soon we should be able to set different scenarios for the same agent. So for example, before that, and again I was running this masterclass on OKR agent by Rava, so we were discussing that some rules would work for one team but would not work for another team. So we can like duplicate agents and adjust instructions for different teams. So with the scenarios coming, that should be able to use one agent, but to set up different scenarios for this. So this is also very exciting. I really want to get my hands on it.
Yeah, I feel like after these events, you have so much information, so many ideas, and we're all very anxious to go and start playing. And that's also my key takeaway is I have to reinvent my job a little bit and start doing things differently, right?
Sure. It always happens after teams. You have conversations, you learn about new things, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can try this, I can try that. Like even, for example, I met recently one of the ladies who's expert within the adapting Jira for the marketing teams, and she was like, I was doing something on my own, but she was like absolutely next level, how she customized things, how she customized workflows for the to make Jira more usable for marketers. So you can meet so many people and get so many insights from areas you did not expect you can get during this conference. I guess this is my favorite part of it.
You never know what you're going to learn, who you're going to be talking to. So yeah, that's so exciting. Well, thank you, Margo,
thank you
for
so much
being here. And we already played some paddle. I hope that next time you'll come back and we play some more.
Sure. I'd love to. Thank you so much.